At 5:30 this morning, gunshots rang out near the US Consulate in downtown Toronto. Evidence markers on the ground, police tape everywhere, and bullet marks on the building's wall. But let me say this absolutely clearly here, right from the start. That kind of violence, even as a response to the US putting the entire world in danger, it's not who we are as Canadians. It's unacceptable, it's reckless, and it only makes a dangerous situation worse. Yes, the war on Iran is completely unnecessary, ridiculous and barbaric. And like Israel's action in Gaza, it tells a clear story about the people behind it. But that's not the whole story here. For months now, Donald Trump and his allies have been escalating threats against Canada's sovereignty, calling us the 51st state, saying our country shouldn't exist anymore, but should be part of what he calls the Greater North America, Trump's monarchy. And if that language sounds familiar to you, well, it should. It's the very same playbook used against Ukraine just before Russia invaded. So today we need to talk about what's really happening here. 4 big things. First, the hybrid war against Canada. Second, why denial is our biggest weakness. Third, the economic pressure Canadians are already applying. And finally, the peaceful strategy Canada must double down on. And I tell you how. Because if this is the new reality, Canada has to wake up. But we must respond the Canadian way. Firm, calm, and non-violent. The pressure on Canada isn't just talk anymore. It's economic, political, and psychological. It's a full spectrum campaign. Trump and his cronies, like his mumbling ambassador Peter Hoekstra, are openly mocking Canada's existence, calling our Prime Minister governor, saying we survive only because of the mighty United States. At the same time, American trade policy has targeted key Canadian industries. Auto, lumber, aluminum, tariffs, and you might add threats and economic pressure. This strategy is also known as hybrid warfare. And when you look at the pattern, it's hard to ignore. Because this isn't the first time the US has acted aggressively to achieve its objectives. From regime change operations to military interventions around the world, that pattern exists. And recently, Trump even sent troops into Venezuela, seized a political leader, and demanded oil concessions before withdrawing. At the same time, the US is bombing Iran, taking the lives of over 140 girls in their school. So here's the question Canadians are asking. If Washington is willing to act that way abroad, why would Canada automatically assume we are immune? Especially when Trump and his buffoons keep saying Canada should be absorbed into a greater North America. Language matters, because historically it has often came before something worse. Now here's the part that worries many Canadians, and it does me too. A lot of our political leadership still believes that this is all just temporary. They believe that the US is still fundamentally the same ally it has always been. That eventually everything will return back to normal. But ordinary Canadians, like you and me, we aren't buying it anymore. Recent pollings show something remarkable. About 55% of Canadians now see the US as a threat to our security. 55%. Think about that for a moment. For decades, Canadians saw Americans as friends and partners. Now the majority sees danger, arrogance, aggression. We can take a lesson from Ukraine. Before Russia invaded in 2022, many Ukrainians believed the threats were just rhetoric, just politics, They assumed that war was impossible in a modern world. Then, one morning, the missiles started to come in. Now, to be clear, no one is saying the US is about to roll tanks across the border tomorrow. But hybrid conflict doesn't start with tanks, it starts with pressure, economic warfare, information campaigns, political destabilization, and even support for international division. But it usually ends with destruction, one way or the other. Some analysts even warn that Washington's contact with separatist movement inside Canada resembles the tactic used by Russia in eastern Ukraine. Again, the same playbook, so the real danger for Canada is denial, pretending the situation hasn't changed. Now here's the good news. Ordinary Canadians are already responding, and they are doing it the most polite yet most effective way, with our wallets. Since April 2025, our grassroots movement has exploded. Millions of Canadians are now avoiding American products. The impact? Huge. The US economy has already lost an estimated $3.8 billion per month, every month, in Canadian purchases. American tourism is taking a hit too. Canadian travel to the United States has dropped sharply. That decline alone has cost the US tourism sector about $5.7 billion. Well, that hurts. And it proves something important. Canada doesn't need violence to push back. Economic pressure works. But we are not finished yet. Not by a long shot. Because too many Canadians are still flying south for vacation. Still spending money in Trumpistan. Still supporting the very economy that's threatening our sovereignty. That has to stop. Please talk to your friends, talk to your family. Help them to see the bigger picture. If Canada wants respect, we need to act like an independent country. That means one simple idea. Baba. Buy anything but American. So most Canadians don't buy US products anymore. And don't buy US cars either. And staying away from crossing into the US. Now let's talk about the next battlefield. The 2026 World Cup. It's supposed to be a celebration of international unity. But in typical Trump's fashion, he has thrown that sentiment right out of the window. The political situation in the US is turning it into something else entirely. Almost 20,000 European fans are already cancelling tickets. European travel bookings to US host sites are dwindling fast. Security concerns are rising because immigration raids and ICE operations will continue during the tournament. And here's the reality. If the US wants to threaten its neighbors and bomb countries around the world, the same world doesn't want to reward that behavior with tourism dollars. So Canadians and people around the world, recognize your immense power. Consider the peaceful response that works. Boycott the World Cup games held on US soil. Attend matches in Canada and Mexico instead. Pressure FIFA to relocate more games. Canada can host them. Mexico can host them. But rewarding instability, aggression, and neglectful or intentional actions that cost 140 innocent children's lives, it's not the spirit of global sports or human societies. Again, this video is about peaceful pressure. Money talks, and right now the US economy is listening. Before we wrap this up, let's come back to where we started. The shooting at the US Consulate in Toronto. Let me repeat this clearly. That kind of violence is not Canadian. We do not solve political problems with bullets. We solve them with democracy, unity, and smart strategy. After all, we are Canadians, and the real power Canadians have is economic. consumer choices, travel decisions, and international reputations. That's where the pressure belongs. So here's the question I want to leave you with today. If Canada is facing economic and political pressure from the United States, what should our response be? Do we keep things the way they are? Or do we push harder with peaceful tools like boycotts, economic independence and global pressure? Please let me know what you think in the comments below. I really can't wait to read your opinion. And if you believe Canada should stand strong, stay peaceful and defend our sovereignty, please share this video, because the more Canadians understand what's happening, the stronger our country becomes. Thanks for watching. I'm Wilfried Lemkuller with Europe Curious. See you in the next one.